Hello, welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. We love to interact with you, and we love to do it live every week. So we love to see you over in Facebook land, hello Facebook, as well as on the YouTube chats. So you know me. My name is John Ruark. I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. And let's go around for what is now a full house tonight. Let's go to Jason Richards. Jason, hi, and how are you? Looks like, there you go. How you doing, Jason?
I am good. Thanks. My internet was wigging out, but I'm back now, and I brought T-shirts for everybody. Anyway, Jason Richards here, past master of Vacation Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia. Little under the weather, but it just means for those of you listening to the audio podcast, like the sexiness of my voice has been dialed in like an extra 200%. On video, sorry, you have to compensate by the decrease in sexiness of the video. I'm also a member of the Colonial Lodge number 1821 in Washington, D.C.
Good to see you. Next up, Juan Sepulveda. Good evening. How are you?
Hello, everybody. Juan Sepulveda here from sunny Kissimmee, Florida. Brother from Orange Blossom Lodge number 80. And the brother behind thewindingstairs.com. Good to see everyone.
Excellent. Also, Robert Johnson. How are you?
Hey everybody, I am doing fantastic. I'm on the wrong camera right now. It's okay. But anyway, I'll switch that in a second. It's great to be with you guys. I'm drawing a blank. Sorry, Space Novum Lodge 1183. Waukegan. Or no, Libertyville. Get out of here. Go to somebody else.
Get out of here. Get out of here, kid. You bother me.
You could literally say anything, and we'd be like, oh, okay.
Yes.
It's Robert.
That's right,
like
It's
Frankenstein
Robert.
Lodge, number 31?
He's on crack.
Oh, that's new. He must got a new honorary membership.
He's joined again.
Yeah.
And last but not least, the one, the only, Mike the Intern. Mike Hambrock, how you doing?
Good. It's Mike the Intern, Hammy. I'm also a member of Lakeshore Lodge number 307 in Madison, Ohio, where I am the senior warden and lodge education officer. I am also I think it's a senior steward at Castle Island Virtual Lodge. Good evening.
Good evening, good evening. All right, the gang's all here. So before we get into tonight's topic, I want to thank the patrons who've been supporting the show for quite a while, who's helped us get some upgrades, get some tech, get some lighting, and all around helping to keep this show on the air or on the YouTubes for such a long time. So thank you for that. And if you want to help support the show, go to patreon.com/the Masonic Roundtable, and we'd love to see you in our little secret squirrel chat rooms and everything, because we have lots of fun times talking about cool stuff in there. So tonight's topic is a little bittersweet, I have to say. Unfortunately, let's just rip the Band-Aid off, which my oldest knows I love to do. Unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to one of our esteemed and loved co-hosts, and that is Mike the Intern.
John Ruark is leaving us.
Yes, that's it. I'm out. Good night, everybody. So, no, unfortunately...
Wait, we lost the video feed.
Yeah. Cut. Cue the test pattern. No, unfortunately, we're not that lucky. Because we're having a much greater loss with Mike the Intern has decided to step down, pursue other endeavors after 4 years with the show. So that is certainly no light endeavor. That's 4 years of his life and ours, and it's just to everything there's a season, as written by the wise King Solomon. And so Hammy said it's probably time that we
it's kind of a forgery
and try something new.
Most assuredly a forgery. Probably wasn't.
You've been reading too much Urban. So, So
and Smalley.
And Smalley. What do you say, Hammy? What's on your mind, and what are your thoughts on that big announcement?
So, yes, I am leaving the show. I began to notice this a while back that I was beginning to feel like it was more work than fun. And that's not a bad thing. It's just I was, finding that I couldn't focus on coming up, working on the topics we were trying to do for the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided that rather than make the quality of my appearances go down and the show go down, I felt that it was better for me to take a step back. And there's actually some other things I've been working on. I've had a blog going that has been stagnant for a little while. I have other ideas, and I've been picking up golfing again, and got back into being an amateur astronomer. So my life's gotten a little bit busy, on some other angles. So I decided that it was time to focus my energies a little bit differently. And I've really enjoyed being on the show for those 4 years, though. I mean, it's been a great experience.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is, as soon as Hammy gave us the bad news, it was, it's no hard feelings. And that's the way we said it's really just, I think the best metaphor we came up with is it's like when your kid goes off to college, right? Still a member of the family, just time to move on to something else. And fully support that. And it's just been so great to have you as a key member of the group for, again, such a long time, that it's really helped shape the show, your academic research background, your history, nerdism. I mean, there were a couple of episodes where, you did some historical research and you were just nerding out over like this one guy I'd never heard of, and you're going into all the great gory details that I was just fascinated with because of your attention to detail, your passion for that topic, and it really added so much to the caliber of the show. And again, I want to thank you for that.
I was basically like, outlasted Nick Johnson. Check. Okay. Thank you. Good night.
Well, I do have to admit, I have to say this though. This came to mind because we're the round table. I was wondering if somehow like Nick's chair, so to speak, and mine is actually Siege Perilous of the round table. I mean, if you guys remember anything about your King Arthur legendary, that's the one that only Galahad could sit in. All others would end up leaving the table.
Interesting. Look at you dropping that history knowledge bomb right there. It's just what I'm talking about.
I thought it was the table that had like the spring loaded, expulsion.
That's it.
You can push a button, you're like, oh, hey, thanks for coming. All right,
what's your favorite color?
Bing!
I heard Grandmasters have one of those in every one of their boardrooms, right?
Yeah.
It automatically writes a letter of suspension and or expulsion.
It's a form letter.
Dang.
It's one of those Ernst Stavro Blofeld
it's
things.
The auto
right?
pen.
Blofeld button.
Oh, wow. So I thought one thing that we could do tonight, too, is really just reminisce on what are some of Hammy's favorite moments of the show, kind of how he got involved with the show, and just really tell us a little bit about, his experience with that. So I guess, the best place to start is at the beginning. So, Hammy, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you heard of the show and then really started to help out? Where did you meet the rest of us?
Yeah. So how it all started is actually I was listening to Whence Came You and The Winding Stairs. And I started them off at their beginning of their podcasts. And somewhere along the line, they started mentioning the Masonic Roundtable. And so I started immediately, I'm like, oh, there's another one I got to listen to, and found it and was now, paying attention to it right from the beginning. And then it worked out one time I was actually traveling to Florida with my wife and to visit her parents who were staying down there in the Villages. And while we were there, I managed to arrange to meet with Juan for dinner, which was great. I met him and we kind of flowed from there.
You didn't die.
And then,
that's good. You met Juan in a secret endeavor and didn't die.
That's right. And I was
Midnight
actually
rendezvous.
And actually, at that point, I was just an entered apprentice. And then I got my fellow craft, and you guys were going to be speaking at the Pennsylvania Academy of Masonic Knowledge. And I was like, well, that's just about 5 hours drive from me. I have to go there.
To hop and a skip.
Yep. And as I was planning that, though, I had been messaging you guys on Facebook to meet with you on offer that I could, help out and whatnot. And so I showed up, and you guys put me to work.
Yeah, careful what you ask for that. That was fun and yet stressful at the same time because while the good folks at the PA Academy of Masonic Knowledge just kind of let us speak about any topic we wanted without pre-approval, we said, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could stream the event? And they said, what's that? And so we said, well, if we come early, maybe we can help set it up, and as long as there's internet there, we can figure something out. And
we were literally like, no, we'll do it. Don't worry about it.
We'll figure
it
out.
Your permission and broadband. That's all we need.
Yes, and but with no setup. That's the thing. Like, we were setting up that day, and so while good heads getting into the game was one thing, just it really counted on someone like Hammy to jump in and say, hey, I'm Hammy. Remember, we've talked on the internet? What can I do to help? And I said, great, here, take this. And just, put him right to work. Because it was, oh my gosh, he was indispensable for, running the cameras and just making sure the audio was fine. I mean, it's so, like a good...
weren't we using one computer and remoting to another for some of it? It
was something weird, like Hangouts on Air, where we had to have like the video of the person talking on one feed and then the slides on another feed.
That's what it was. Yeah, that's how we were trying to work that. Yeah.
So that was the first time we were all together, and I don't know if you've thought about it, but all 6 nights of the Masonic Roundtable
that have ever been were
one and only time.
Location. Yeah.
That's the only time we've all 6 been together. Yeah.
Yeah, and we were very thankful.
It's also the only time we've ever met Nick.
Don't speak when you're elder.
Yeah,
you're speaking.
That's true.
Wow. Am I the youngest member of TMR? Yes.
And always have been, right?
Are you crazy?
Because Nick wasn't younger.
Also, yes.
But one thing is, we brought this Frankenstein of equipment. So there were cables coming from Kissimmee. We had computers coming from Illinois and from Virginia. And there's no way we could have done all of that tech stuff by ourselves. So, he was heaven sent there.
Yeah. Now, wasn't Al Leathers also there that day?
I think you're right.
I didn't quite meet him, but I knew I knew later that I had seen him there. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was one of his first, Masonic outings too. Because, again, you guys were young Masons at the time. Again, you hadn't even had, like you said, had your Master Mason degree yet.
No, not yet. Yeah, that was still 2 months, a month. Actually, that was in March. So, yeah, it was a month away as my Master Mason from that.
It is just so interesting that we met you there, and I remember having like these passive conversations because we were running around with our heads cut off, and you and I were toward the back. I distinctly remember by the mixer boards there was a table, and you and I were talking about something, Mike. I can't even remember. We were just shooting the breeze while we were doing this thing. And you were so professional. I was like, I don't know how to do this. And you kept saying, I got this. I'll do this. And you,
I remember that. That's true. I remember him saying, I got this. It was incredible. Yep. Yeah. Just show me what buttons to click. I got it. And
because you guys had to show me that because it was a Mac I was doing this on. It wasn't a PC, which I'm, I'm a PC guy,
But in the back of that academy, y'all remember I think they had like a big old 1980s mixer board that probably had like Twisted
Oh,
Sister on
yeah.
it at some point.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was
Right.
cool though, and wow, what a cool venue though to meet at. And as you
Yeah.
said, the first time we were all together and last time, I just remember thinking, Nick was way taller than I thought, and Juan, you were shorter than I thought, but you're still all taller than me, so who cares?
Yeah. I think RJ and I are about the same height, so we got the short guy
Yeah.
problem. Yeah.
And Nick and I
Right.
are about the same
up?
height.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
That
because
was
you're a giant.
surprising. Yeah, that was surprising. I was like, man.
Because you're all about this big on my screen, so it's really hard to tell.
Yeah.
So then we started. You started coming onto a few shows, and just hopping in the chats and all that. And you started to become one of these guys who, like any good fan of the show, if you're knowledgeable about a topic, and you're willing to talk about it, and willing to put in the work, sure enough, we would say, hey, Mike, do you want to come on and talk about something? Sure, because one of the guys would be out, sick or for whatever reason indisposed.
Yeah.
And again, rising to the challenge, what Hammy does best. He just came right on in, and we said, this is a good thing, especially after Nick moved on. So then let's fast forward a little bit to somewhere around June 24th, 2017, give or take a few days. St. John the Baptist Day, the 300th anniversary of Freemasonry, where we held a little event called Freemasonry's Future, the 300 event at Alexandria.
Freemasonry's Legacy, Freemasonry's Future.
That's correct. Celebrating the craft. And, and then sort of affectionately known as TMR Con. It really wasn't about us, but at the same time, we did all the work putting it together. So it was fun. Had everyone show up. Hammy was there. Nick was actually unable to attend because he was doing some commandery thing. That's right. Jason's got his little pin there. Look at that.
Look at the pin. Look at that thing.
It's a collector's item now.
It is. The lighthouse at Alexandria.
And,
I'm impressed that you were able to
you
zoom in and focus on that
Tell-
thing on the fly.
For sure. Just
Dang.
remember this. Find another set of dudes like Masonic nobodies who got to rent out that building.
That's right.
the beautiful George Washington National Masonic Memorial.
How did we do that?
It'll never happen again.
Nope. Not after what we left. But we said, well, wouldn't it be
the
cool?
etheric remains of amazing content?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Echoes through the chambers. What do we do? We all put together, at least, each of us put together a couple presentations from our own unique spin, and had a couple other amazing speakers as well. Also had Hammy put together a little preview of his 300 years of Freemasonry, which he expanded upon. We just did a recap of that for the real 300th anniversary, and we surprised him at the end of his presentation by dubbing him, knighting him. I don't know, what would you call it?
Actually,
It was before.
It was before because
Was it? Oh,
it was
good memory.
actually Jason wanted to do it to help distract me from my nervousness to begin with, because I was also the first speaker of the morning.
that's
And had
nothing
never-
to take
and
the edge
had
off.
never
Like
done anything like
promoting
this,
you.
Yeah.
Hey,
Gotta
I know
tell
you have
though,
this. You got this fear of going in front of all these people. Let me just give you something else to think about so that you vomit.
Yeah. I think it made it easier because I was trying to keep from bursting into tears at the same time over my, astounding, that I've been offered this. I was really touched to that level that it was pushing, and I was fighting those back.
So yeah, it was probably a little evil in hindsight, just throwing that on you and not prepping you for that. But again, that's we can at least say that's the official start date of the regular host of Mike the Intern. And we of course we've used the that nomenclature lovingly, right? There's no one that does not think that you weren't an equal participant in the whole thing, right? So it's really just, to be honest, it's a nod to two things. One, the Howard Stern show, and two, that the oldest gentleman on the the round table is an intern. So
is the intern, yeah.
and as shown by your wonderful work ethic and ability to jump in and help when you needed to be there. So thanks again for all that.
It is funny that you bring that up. Somebody else had mentioned that in the YouTube chat too. But you always think about, what does the intern do, right? Everything, and that's Mike.
Can
Mike
you top this off for me? Get a little empty.
Mike has everything in his toolbox. He's like the jack of all trades. I kept laughing. I was thinking about this over the last couple of weeks, and I'm like, man, Mike leaving the show. It is so bittersweet, because on one hand, of course, it's bitter he's leaving the show. But on the other hand, what's sweet about it is, as you mentioned, Mike, you're doing all this stuff now. In actuality, because we follow you, right? We're invested in you. You're our friend. We get to see all this cool stuff that you're doing. And the second you guys at home don't know this, but Mike started sharing pictures of this new telescope, this new toy. And as somebody who's had like this kind of, moderately kick butt telescope at home for, I don't know, 15 years now, and I still haven't figured out how to use the dang thing. Like, Mike is a hero to me in this respect. So I just think it's so cool that you're going to be, getting back into that. He's, in amateur astronomy clubs and all this cool stuff, man. It's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah.
So your life changed at that moment.
It did a lot.
So tell us some of your favorite stories of the past 4 years, at least. Any great insights you had from hanging out with us and giving presentations around, and just all around, a 4-year review of how things have been going for you.
Yeah. So actually, I want to jump back in between a little bit on our history there, because we did the Academy of Masonic Knowledge, and obviously we did the 300. But in between there was an actually really cool semi-TMR event that I came down and helped out with also in Virginia. Jason was being installed as Worshipful Master, and we live streamed that as well. And that, that was my second time to actually be able to hang out with the two of you.
Yeah, I tried to block out Jason being Master out of my memory altogether. Yeah. So that's my bad.
You and me both.
But it was a great time to do that, for doing that, hanging out with both of you, and
which that was also streamed to the TMR YouTube channel as well. You can go back and see Jason's installation. So Hammy was driving that as well. That's right.
Yeah. Yep. And that's
good catch.
Actually, I was going to say that was when I met, but it wasn't the time I met Don McAndrews.
Right.
It was actually the previous time when I came to I had dinner with you guys and went to lodge. Yeah. Because it was after that he introduced me to Powers Irish Whiskey. And taught me everything about the operatives, Masons, and that the Operatives Guild one, the Masonic body. And then he even told me things that was probably stuff I would only learn if I'd gotten in and haven't been in it yet. And I don't remember it because that Irish whiskey was so smooth that I was stumbling out of there. And was thankful I had a ride back to the hotel with my wife. But no, those were great. And then, obviously the 300.
Mm-hmm.
For the show, I'm trying to remember. A lot of what I remembered that I liked to do, even before I got on, was that I was really enjoying how at the time back then we didn't have the chat for the YouTube and all that. We just had everything was done on Facebook, and you guys would be talking about some topic, or you'd have the Masonic news, and I would look up whatever it was and get the links and actually make sure that those links were on Facebook. And that was even before you guys asked me to intern and anything. I was just doing that because it was like, oh, this is
throwing them in the chat. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Still my favorite part of the show. But
that's one of those things that stood out to me, that you were engaged in that form. And I've noticed that before in other people's streams. There's someone who, whenever they mention some link, they go fetch it, drop it in there. Because the person that's broadcasting, they can't be typing and searching for stuff. So that was very helpful that you did that. And like anyone out there with aspirations to be an intern one day, go
that's
fetch
how you do
them
it.
links.
That's it. Search for whatever these guys are talking about. If it's got a link to it, a link to a book, shove it in the chat, shove it on the Facebook page and Twitter, because they got a Twitter account out there for this too.
And think about like the people that are listening, that they may not know the spelling of the author that we mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
We mention a book and then we say the name of the person real quick and they're like, what was that book? What was it? That's really helpful whenever you get here's the link, go check it out. So,
oh yeah. For the longest time, I always thought P.D. Newman was Petey Newman.
P-E-T-E-Y.
Not the letter P. Yeah.
Like Pete, but Petey. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Because I kept hearing people talk about P.D. Newman, and I'm like, I'm looking for this P.D. Newman, and I can't find him anywhere.
It's like some weird, obscure Amazon.com author who's published like a book on canaries.
Yeah.
Can't be the same guy, can it?
No. You watch. He has a book on canaries probably now.
Yeah, probably, But, I remember enjoying that and trying very hard to make sure that I sent an email to Nick to make sure that my name got listed for the Masonic Monday question on Tuesday.
Yeah, get my name on the air.
Oh my God, do you guys remember that? Do you guys remember that? Oh my God, that was so fun. And we would have the winners every week. And Mike, you were the guy a couple times.
Yeah. I would just, I started hammering on those, just trying to fulfill them,
And that's when he became internet famous.
That's it.
Who is this guy who gets the question every week?
That's it. I got to tell you, though, the biggest thing about all of this, though, is that I credit you guys with the start of my Masonic career, though. I mean, it was before I was, an entered apprentice. I was listening to your shows because I needed something, and, I've learned, you guys had a show on what it is to be a, worshipful master, and I'm coming up on that. So I've been, making those plans, heading for that, based off of things I learned from you guys on this show, and more, but, there was a lot you guys talked about with that. And, and I found my way looking for the Scottish Rite and all the other appendant bodies because you guys on all your shows have talked about it, So in one form or another, it's been out there with the York Rite, the Scottish Rite, even before, I got on.
Yeah, and you actually bring a lot of wonderful, I think, practical experience to what we talk about, Mike, because over the years, as somebody who came into the craft, you immediately got involved. And you were going to chapter, and you were going to lodge, and you were so active in lodge that you were LEOs, and you had even moved around, at different points for different lodges because of various reasons, But the point is that you were active, and I always thought that was a great perspective to bring to the show because while all of us, had some form of activity in lodge, we weren't all at that level of going to lodge every week and doing the thing. I mean, I think I was because I'm a secretary, but just the dedication of bringing the practical knowledge
will
to the
say,
show every week and perspectives was crazy.
I'll add in that I do remember those conversations of his like, what do you think if I just jump in the line in chapter? And I'm like, you've been a Master Mason for like 24 hours, right? Like, I remember saying, dude, like, slow down. You're like, okay, I'll consider it the next day. Hey guys, I hopped in line at chapter. All right, screw you,
But
John.
you made some impacts, right? And I mean, one if I could just share this, man, it was the coolest, right? You had asked for, I was supposed to come out there to do a presentation, and y'all had been like, hey, our secretary strict or whatever, can you send a letter of introduction from your Grand Lodge? And I was like, oh yeah, that's okay, that's weird. I mean, people do that still, but I mean, it's kind of antiquated, but whatever, sure. As just kind of my thinking, and I send it, and I get there and we hang out and we stay at your in-laws' place and we just hang out and like talk and all this cool stuff. We bond, we do presentations, and then I get to your lodge and y'all gave me an honorary membership. And that's what everybody, if somebody asks for this letter of recommendation and Mike ever does that, beware. Yeah.
Wink, nudge, nudge, say no more.
I get this honorary membership. Mike was super sneaky about it. So beware, Mike is sneaky.
Yeah.
Just letting you all know.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, I do that.
Now,
but that was.
Yeah, you did mention that like you started to get even busier because people started to pick up on your name and your voice in other lodge meetings, right? Because they wait a minute, you're Mike the Intern, aren't you? Right? So a little bit of that did come true. A little bit of street cred came true.
True story. Scottish Rite reunion. Sitting there talking to an older gentleman about his life in the Scottish Rite, and suddenly this kid walks over to me, and I say kid. He's probably in his 30s anyway, but I'm in my 50s now, so it's easy to say he's a kid. Anyway, walks over to me and he goes, "Are you on a podcast?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Are you Mike the Intern?" Like, "Yes, I am." He goes, I knew your voice." And me, I'm inside going, how did it get that far? Because I keep forgetting sometimes that people only listen to it because we have the YouTube channel. I forget some people never watch that,
That's what you look like?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny. In Esotericon, that's super weird because like I remember distinctly listening to Masonic Podcast and envisioning the people. So I had an idea of what Robert looked like. I had an idea of what Eric looked like. And then eventually, of course, I had an opportunity to meet them. And it's like, oh, wow. Like, it's a completely different person than what I imagined, not in a bad way. It's just like a different person altogether. Like, the voice doesn't tell anything, right? So, but that's awesome that, people get to finally make that connection, like there in front of you.
And you got a
and
couple...
that's the other thing from this show, too, that's been great. I've been on Eric Diamond's Ex Oriente.
Mm-hmm.
I've also been on, we've all been on them at some point, I think, with a Masonic Light.
Masonic Light podcast. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was brought to light from Australia by, gosh, I can't remember his name now. All of a sudden, my brain just went blank. But,
brother, it's Jack Aquilina, right?
Jack. That's it, Jack Aquilina. Yeah. Because I haven't listened to them in a long time either. I know they went off for a while. I don't know if they've even come back. So,
Mike, I got to ask you about this, though, too, because one of the things that y'all might pick up on with Mike is that he was kind of like hip into the world of the Masonic podcasts. And Mike would be like, hey, there's another podcast coming out. Hey, there's another. And not only was he pulling all the names of these podcasts that were coming out, you guys, he listens to them all.
All.
Like he knows.
If
he
there
like
ever
has the
was an
beat.
episode, he's listened to
was,
it.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I was.
I remember.
It's been since COVID started that I haven't really listened to like any.
Which
Isn't it
makes
weird
no
that-
sense, though, because it's the
Yeah, I
opposite.
know. Yeah.
I feel the same way with books. I was reading and reading and reading, and then COVID happened. It's like, I forgot to read. But listen, I wanted to point out, remember when we were at, I can't remember what event it was, but I know all of us were eating at a Cracker Barrel, and I asked the question about, it's like, Hammy, like, what podcast would you say do this and that? And he pulls his phone and opens a document that he had with all the different, with the list of all the Masonic podcasts. I'm like, holy crap. he had the compendium.
Yeah, and I had made that document, honestly, for a lodge education, because it was like, I got so much out of all of them. I mean, and I'll even throw it out there because they're jerks, but the After Lodge podcast, I got stuff out of them on occasion. After their last big moment for us, though, I stopped. I hadn't listened to them since. But, there was other ones out there that, were guys just having fun. There was the one that was the Craftsman Podcast out of Utah. Those guys were great. They've since, ended their show, but, but there's been, there's a lot of them out there that you could just get a lot out of. I mean, What is a Mason? Out of New Orleans was great. These were all little things just to, just to pick up some more information. And that's why I put them all down and handed them off to the guys at Lodge.
And that's what I think really epitomizes the value that you brought to the show, is that you understand that, like many of the listeners and many of the reasons why we all put together Masonic content on the internet, is that there's so much information out there, and there's so much more. Masonry is a lifelong endeavor. There's so much more to contribute, and yet it's all free. And so when you spend maybe an hour in Lodge, maybe 10 minutes of education in Lodge, and yet you can go home or on your phone and get hundreds of hours of Masonic content. You can get every Masonic book ever written, either from public domain or on Kindle. It's something that a studious Mason like yourself would just be naturally attracted to, because, like you said, even a broken clock tells the right time twice a day, and
Right.
and every podcast has something of their own spin, of their own value to add, and you can learn from that. It reminds me of the quote that says, "Every person you've ever met knows something that you don't."
Yeah.
And that is true for Masonic content as well.
And that's why I went crazy. I remember listening to In the Chair. I think it was On the Chair or In the Chair. I don't remember now. From England, the guy, he was a master, and he did it for 1 year.
Robert Bone.
That's a Robert Bone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember listening to him though, and he did an interview with Juan, and he made me laugh every time he said Juan's name though, because it wasn't quite right. Was it Sepulveda? Yeah.
Yep.
But,
I come across that a while. No, I like his podcast. There's some really good podcasts out there, and you're moving on to other projects and so on and so forth, and in the future some of us may do the same. But when I started listening to Masonic podcasts, like the number one that I would listen to was the Digital Freemason, and then I started listening to Whence Came You, and then Ex Oriente, and I can see how then there's going to be newer Masons coming in, and they're going to listen to this new podcast that is hosted by someone who's listening to this right now. So if you are listening to this and you've thought, oh, you know what, I think I really would enjoy doing a Masonic podcast. Well, knock yourself out. Go ahead and do it. You may have a different voice, a different spin, a different angle by which to inspire the new generation of Masons that is coming up.
Yeah. And I'm going to be straight on this. Don't be afraid that you're going to copy anyone. Even if you do, even if you sat down and said, you know what, I got 4 other friends and I'm going to start my own Masonic Roundtable. I mean, obviously call it something else, but something like that. So what? It doesn't matter. Do it.
The Masonic Square Table.
Yeah,
I'll come and punch you in the throat.
Register trademark.
I don't play games.
Yeah, though.
Call it something else, damn it.
Yeah. Yes, I'm being honest with that one. Call it something else, but the point is, don't feel afraid that you what you're doing at that, for everybody out there that, might have an idea, I know there's the guys in Connecticut that they started one in their lodge, the Freemasons podcast, and funny though, when they started theirs, they didn't know there was too many out there yet. Then they found out about us and so forth because I was talking to them. But, it was, it's one of those things, just, and you always have something to offer.
And of course, looking forward, right? Looking what's next for Hammy. You've already put together some great presentations. I know if you go over to masonicinstruction.com, you have a speakers page there with a couple of presentations you've already put together. I'm sure that's going to evolve. That's going to grow. I'm sure you're still willing to go visit and speak at other lodges and share that knowledge.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's not Hammy pulling the hermit card and going into a cave somewhere. And
actually I'm still going to be a Mason. I'm still going to be, hopefully going to be Worshipful Master at the end of this year and High Priest of Chapter next year. But back to another conversation we were just having in all of this, where you said, take it slow and so forth. I didn't listen at the time, obviously, but, I actually I was in the officer's line in council and commandery as well. And I have, I had since pulled out of that. I'm still not in the officer's line in council, but as I'm approaching the Worshipful Master and High Priest, I actually got called in to cover a spot in commandery. And that was, they needed somebody there. They didn't have, enough people. So it was just, a need, and I filled it. But, honestly, I am trying to stay back so I can get those other ones done and done well, and, take these other ones a little slower. So
take them slower. But what I love though is that I think a lot of us, I think Masons in particular, are likely to be thoughtful about what we've done in our lives. Right? We all have this charge that we're told, leave the world a better place that you came into it. That's not ritual or anything. That's just like this kind of weird common thing that a lot of us think about. And I think it's important to get involved and to make small impacts everywhere you can. And, I think all of us do that. And the fact that you have done a lot of the things that, I think anybody thinks are difficult to do. And you were a relatively young Mason who didn't join as early as some people did. Like I waited till I was 28. I was talking to a brother today who joined at 21. And I'm just thinking like, man, everything that brother has done, and he's the same age as I am. He's got 7 more years than I have in this craft.
Yeah.
And the things that they've done in that time. And it blows my mind. And you've done the same thing. You came in, you loved the craft, and you served the craft every way you can. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Let me ask you.
I'll admit my first thought when I joined and, I was finding out about all these different things I could do was, and this is honestly why I started jumping into all the chairs. I'm going to be honest about this. I was 48 years old. And I said, oh my God, I've only got so many years left and I'm going to be dead, And
Wow. That's one
well,
way to.
it just kind
If it
of
works.
you
Yeah.
know, but it was one of those things. It was like I'm almost 50 here, and by the time I'm done with this, I'll be a retired old man and going to be dead shortly after that. Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking, not necessarily true, but
Have you seen
know.
the Grand Line? I mean,
yeah,
there's some old dudes. Trust me, you got plenty of time.
and that's and I realized that as more time went on, but it was just at the start that was my first feelings on it.
Yeah, that reminds me, just a weird, fun fact. There's a guy who's written a couple books, leadership books, called Daniel Pink, and he wrote one on the power of when, like timing. And he said that most people that run a marathon run it in at the age of where they end with a 9. So they run a marathon at either 29, 39, 49,
Oh, wow.
because they see exactly what you said. They're like, I'm getting ready to go to a next decade. I gotta prove to myself that I can do this, or something like that. So hey, whatever it takes,
over the hill.
whatever it takes, right? Motivation's a great thing. Yep. So let me ask you a complimentary question to RJ's. Is like, do you have any regrets over the past 4 years or over your Masonic career? Is there anything you wish you had done so far that you haven't?
Well, one I regret, but it was a necessary step. I would have been high priest this year in June. But because of COVID, we didn't meet. I didn't spend a lot of time in the chair as king. And yes, could I step in and be high priest and not have an issue with that? Yes, that's not even. But there were also other guys in our line that hadn't done their spot and were going to be put into a much more responsible role. And some of them I knew weren't going to be ready for that either. And I said, I have to do this for them and for myself. I'm going to take and I talked to the outgoing high priest and I just said, can you do one more year, please? And he was like, sure, but don't you want to go up? And I'm like, absolutely, I want to go up, but here's why. And he went, okay, I won't. I'll stay. So, yeah. But that's one. That's a big one that I regret. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
I'll tell you another thing I regret that isn't quite Masonic, but it involves all of us. I regret not going to Noah's Ark with you guys that day, even though I was so sick.
Yeah.
But didn't we bring you back some good lunch?
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely did.
Yeah. That was. You were sorely missed on that trip. I will tell you, on that little trip to the big boat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had some choice conversation ideas I wanted to have with them, and I didn't get the chance. So.
But when you're sick, you're sick.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're at the portion of the show, the final question. And so we'll save Hammy for last because it's about him. And in fact, Hammy, I'll even let you wrap the show up if you want, and send everyone off as we end the stream. And so the question for myself, Robert, and Juan is, what is your favorite Hammy memory for his tenure here at TMR? And while you guys are thinking about that, I will say that definitely the times we've met in person, mostly in Virginia, because we haven't really made it out your way. At least not all of us have made it out your way. Right. And so the times that you've come to Jason's installation, you've come to the TMR Con or the 300th anniversary of Freemasonry, just being able to see you in person, sit down with you, break bread together, just like we've said a million times on the show, digital Freemasonry does not replace the human connection that we have as friends and brothers, and that is more especially true being in your presence. And so, the first time I got a big bear hug from Hammy, that made it real, and hopefully we'll get some more of those soon. And so that really has been my favorite memory of you and being part of this this fun initiative, and at the least of which being called brother. So let's head over to Robert for your favorite Hammy memory.
So many. I will say that we had this little after party when we were in Pennsylvania. If you could imagine 4 dudes in a hotel room, 5 dudes in a hotel room,
Writes itself.
and then afterwards, even more after the presentations, we had everybody we had everybody over for some beers and pizza that we ordered. And I remember sitting there with Nick Johnson. Now, Nick Johnson is Minnesota. And I was sitting there, and Nick and I, beer for beer. So if you're from the Midwest, I mean, I think a lot of people know what beer for beer means, right? Like you got a beer buddy. You just keep going together. But if you're a Midwest guy, you may be a little bit more familiar. So I'm in Illinois, I'm in Chicagoland area. And I remember Nick and I looking around the room, and Mike was there, and we were all having this great time, and it was amazing. I just remember everybody was like on beer 3, and Nick and I just started laughing because we had like 6 in our lap. It was hilarious. That's just the Midwest boys. But Mike was right there with us. And aside from that, I think my truly favorite Mike moment, though, came a couple of years later when we were at the George Washington National Masonic Memorial. And I remember vividly, I have this kind of, I don't want to say vividly, but it's like the foggy, vintage film reel in my head just a few years ago of what that back room looks like before you step out on that stage. And I remember we're all kind of pacing around back there. I was thinking about this poem that I was going to recite to everybody that was this thing, and Mike comes out and he does his first presentation, the first presentation of the day. And everybody's like, astounded because he did this research based on the Summers paper, and it was just incredible. And I remember that it just took you a minute to like kind of compose yourself. You did the thing where you had the papers and you shuffled them, got them straight or whatever. And you were like so nervous in a round room, an auditorium filled with people. I mean, just talking about this right now makes some people nervous. I can't imagine what you're feeling, but you went up there and you killed it. And I remember I was sitting, if you were looking out, if I'm Mike, I was off to your left on like the second balcony area watching you. And I was sitting next to Scott Duvall, and we were like, this is awesome. You gave a killer presentation. You talked to the audience. And you nailed it, man. And I just thought, like, this is the guy. There was not a better choice. And that was just one of the coolest moments, I think, when we realized, like, we had the 5th Beatle, It was awesome.
All right. Thanks, RJ. Over to you, Juan. Favorite Hammy memory?
My favorite memory has to be that night at the hotel in Pennsylvania. Just Hammy and I embraced. I mean, not that one. The no, after the Masonic Academy of Masonic Knowledge.
Robert's got to add some saxophone music behind that in post.
Oh, I have 2 surprises for our podcast listeners. You all just wait.
Ooh. But like after the Academy of Masonic Knowledge, we all went back to the hotel room, and it was just like the guys talking. There was no nervousness of, oh, we got to speak or we have to do this. Like we were done with the event, and now it was time to like relax and joke around and share memories, and that was really cool. Hammy facilitated some like awesome group shots that day, and we shared a beer or two. I remember Brother Ingram was there from Punxsutawney. And yeah, Al Leathers he was there too, right? And your friend, John, your family friend.
Oh,
my
yeah,
God, I
Paul
forgot his name.
Chamberlain. Yeah.
Paul.
Oh yeah, showed up. Anyway, so that was my favorite memory of us, all together, just joking around, and you know, is that those are the memories that I'll carry. And I thank you for everything you've contributed to the show, all the hard work, putting up with all our nonsense, and doing a good job after all. So I wish you great success in all your endeavors. Keep that torch lit up, and make us proud.
All right. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Hammy, to close out your show.
So, first off, I do remember that evening. That was after the Academy of Masonic Knowledge. That was awesome. I have a funny memory of that moment too, and I'm not going to talk about the photos that we did, but what I do remember at the time was Brother Ingram was still there, and I think everyone else kind of had left, so it was the six of us and him, and it was kind of like, okay, Brother Ingram, you need to go, and it's getting late, you need to get going home because he's got that long drive, and I'm like, oh, there, so I started to leave too, and Jason pulled me aside. He goes, oh, no, you're staying. That right there was, I mean, honestly, that was a killer moment for me, because it was like, oh, wait a minute, it's just the old guy that has to leave, not me. So I get to stay around and keep talking. Yay. And that's also when I think I told you guys even that night, and I still believe it, by the way, of all of you. You guys are Masonic rock stars, all of you, but that was but that time, that's what it was to me, man. I mean, you guys were bigger than life yet, because here, I mean, yeah, I'm, 40, I was 48 years old at the time, and, 10 years older than the oldest one of you, and yet I still felt I was getting so much more from you than I probably could have offered at the time to any of you. But it was just, but that's what I was getting out of Freemasonry from you guys. And, but that night, I know I'll never forget that meeting, or that whole day. And actually, even the next morning, where we sat around having breakfast downstairs while you guys were signing autographs on the photo cards you guys had there. The ones that were, some of them were photos of you, some of them were your 100th episode shot as well. I remember all of those nice little details there. But that was, honestly, that and the 300 itself will be, tops in my memories for a lot of reasons. I also have, to say that this, I may be, I'm leaving the show, but for, Masonry, I'm not gone. And for the podcast community out there, this may not be goodbye. Just bear that in mind. I have my blog out there that I intend to get back to work on. And there's been some thoughts about possibly tying my blog into a podcast of its own. It won't be strictly Masonry. It won't be strictly about my writing. It may be some amateur astronomy stuff. Who knows? Because that's another path I'm on. The amateur astronomy, I can tell you this, with my new telescope, there is a group called Citizen Science, and I will be monitoring, looking for asteroids. Following that, I will be aiming it at some stars out there and searching for exoplanets, getting that data and getting that sent off. Those are things that I actually have in mind and plans for it to do. So I'll definitely be finding reasons to either write about it and or talk about it. So kind of that's where, Mike Hambrick, Mike the Intern, Hammy is going. So But this has been a great 4-year run. I have enjoyed it immensely. I wouldn't trade a day of it for anything else. And it's, it was a very hard decision to step away because I am going to miss it a lot. So, but as I told these guys too, if the day ever comes you need me for something, holler. I'll be there. I'll be the third. I'll be, whatever it is. You need some topic that I'll know.
Absolutely.
I'll come and do it.
Absolutely. So. Hey, this is great. Hammy, we wish you the best. It's been great, and we'll see you on the next time. So thank you all very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night. See you, Hammy.